truth you seek lies. Look in the dark.
With the release of Call of Duty Black Ops 6 imminent, I wanted to dive into the world of Black Ops as a series and explore what is to come and what has already happened leading to the events of the latest installment. One way that I thought of doing this is exploring the characters that we know are going to be a part of Black Ops 6 and dive into their history. For example, it has been confirmed that Saddam Hussein will be one of the main villains in this year's Call of Duty, and with him being a real person in history, I thought we should investigate his history and background to familiarize ourselves more with him. And for those that already know who he is, this could be used as a refresher. This will potentially turn into a new series where we cover Black Ops 6 exclusively. Thank you for joining me and welcome to the story of Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was born on April 28, 1937 in Al-Jaw, Iraq. Saddam grew up poor and was the son of peasants. However, his father would die sometime before his birth. He spent a few years of his childhood in a small village near the city of Tikrit until he moved to Baghdad to live with his uncle. By the time that Saddam turned 18 in 1957, he joined the Ba'ath Party, which was a political party that wanted all Arab countries under one socialist nation. 2 years after joining the Ba'ath Party, Saddam would participate in the failed assassination of Iraqi Prime Minister Abd al-Karim Qasem. Saddam would be wounded during this attempt and he would flee into Syria and then settle in Egypt, where he would study law in Cairo from 1962 to 1963. He would return to Iraq in 1963 when the Ba'ath would take power in Iraq. However, it would be short-lived as they were overthrown that same year, and Saddam would be imprisoned for a few years until 1968, when he escaped and became a prominent figure in re-establishing the Ba'ath Party. They would regain control and Saddam would nationalize the oil industry in Iraq beginning in 1972. In 1979, Saddam Hussein would become president of Iraq. He would also hold many other titles. Some included Prime Minister and Chairman of the Revolutionary Command Council. Saddam would create a secret police that would ensure that he remained in power, and they would take out anyone that threatened his rule. Saddam wanted to rule over the Persian Gulf and realize the original goal of the Ba'ath Party, seeking full control of the oil in Iraq. Saddam began an Iraq-on-Iraq war in 1980 when he launched an attack on Iraq's oil fields. This war would prove costly and weaken Iraq. This would lead to a ceasefire 8 years later in 1988. 2 years later in 1990, Saddam ordered his army to invade Kuwait as he looked to take control of their oil to improve Iraq's own economy. However, this would lead to a trade embargo on Iraq, and the US military would soon mobilize to Saudi Arabia and would warn Saddam against keeping his army in Kuwait. Saddam ignored this and ended up causing the Persian Gulf War, which began on January 16, 1991. Now, this seems to be the major war that we will be entering in Call of Duty Black Ops 6. This war would last about 6 weeks, and it ended when Iraqi forces were pushed out of Kuwait by the Allied military coalition. This would lead to turmoil in Iraq and cause many uprisings against Saddam. However, due to his power and military access, he was able to remain in control, and he would kill and torture and imprison anyone and all who stood against him. Saddam's rule would continue to be a problem for the United Nations, and he was not allowed to produce or have any chemical, biological, or nuclear weapons at his disposal. However, Saddam refused to let the UN arms inspector into the country to inspect his firearms, and this led to Operation Desert Fox in 1998. After this, both Great Britain and the US would support actions in Iraq to unseat Saddam Hussein from power. However, during this, Saddam was already grooming both of his sons to take over as leaders of Iraq. A few years would go by and the 9/11 attacks would occur, and this would lead to fears that Saddam may provide terrorist groups with nuclear or chemical weapons. And so an end of diplomacy was declared and Saddam was ordered to step down as president of Iraq on March 17, 2003. Saddam would refuse to step down and the US and Great Britain would launch an attack on Iraq 3 days later. During this attack, Saddam's 2 sons would be killed, and many months later, in December of 2003, Saddam Hussein would be captured by US soldiers somewhere near the city of Tikrit. In 2005, Saddam went on trial before the Iraqi High Tribunal and would be found guilty of crimes against humanity, and he would be sentenced to death by hanging. On December 30th of 2006, Saddam Hussein would be executed. Now, more than likely, we will be covering all of this, if not most of these events, in the new Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and we will probably know more once the official trailer releases. I also have a feeling that Russell Adler might be a part of Operation Desert Fox.